Hey guys, this is Pratik Amasani and today I'm going to talk about how I designed UK retail sales Power BI model. Before we look into the actual Power BI model, let's talk a bit about the inspiration, the approach I chose, and everything around it. So the inspiration was news. Lockdown just started. Well, I created this Power BI model a few months ago. When lockdown just started, and there was so many reports about so many data visualizations about COVID-19 data, and it was very depressing. I didn't want to create another COVID-19 data. Maybe I will at some point, but at that time I was not really ready to look into COVID-19 data, and I was interested to see, is there any data set that would be more related to COVID but not really about number of cases or number of deaths. So that's when I was interested to what was the other thing which was impacted was mostly the retail sales. Especially in the retail sales, some sectors where the sales went down massively, but there were other sectors like groceries where the sales went up. So I wanted to see that data, and I wanted to see if that data was available anywhere. And me being an Indian, rice was not available anywhere, so that's a disaster. So that's also kind of inspired me to look into the whole retail sector and the groceries data and stuff like that. So that's when I started looking up, is there any data available? And that's how I found ONS retail sales data, which was really good, and it was a simple, straightforward file. So I thought, okay, I will start playing with this data. So that's basically my inspiration behind this data, this model. So the next thing is the layout. Is because I'm not a statistician. I wanted to create something simple. My goal of the report was, how the sales are, current year sales compared to the prior year sales. That was the goal behind it, and the goal is always something which leads to your layout, because I wanted my report to be simple. When audience see it, I don't want to have quite a lot of navigation in it or a interactivity. I wanted interactivity to be really minimal. In the beginning I wanted no interactivity, but later I kind of added some slices, which we will talk more about it when we're actually looking at the report. So I didn't want any interactivity. I wanted it more like a one single visual where I could see the current year versus prior year data. So that's when I thought, okay, I wanted to do it more like an infographic way. So that's kind of how I went for the layout. So I personally feel like, your goal leads you to your layout. So in this model, my goal was to keep it simple and just to see current year versus prior year data. So that's kind of led me to my infographic layout. So this is the Power BI model that we are talking about, that we're going to look into. So let's start by actually looking at the Power Query editor first. So in the Power Query editor, as you can see, there are quite a few queries, but the only queries that I'm using are in the designer folder. So I personally like doing like this, having a designer folder. This kind of gives me, so when I'm going back to my whenever I go to my Power Query editor, I know exactly what queries are brought into Power Query editor. Well, this doesn't always work, but wherever it works, I try to keep it in a folder, just the queries that I'm bringing into the designer. So the data, as I said, I have an Excel file and I did I applied various steps so the data get into the format I wanted to, which were because year, month, attributes that I was talking about and the value. So it's not like nothing very fancy. The only thing I do want to talk about here is the deep links I've been using. So for example, this is my retail sales pounds data. So what I was doing is, so this is my Excel file and this is the current edition of this data set. So what it means is in the next month or whenever the next edition, they update the same file. So what I do usually is I copy a link. Let me open a new tab. Paste it here. So as you can see, it is a deep link of that Excel file. So what I do after that is I get that deep link and I use that in my source. And yeah, I just paste the deep link here. So what this does to me is next time when I go back to my Power BI model, I can just click refresh and I always have the latest data. So it's a really good technique I try to follow whenever I'm working with open data, or especially whenever my data is available somewhere on the website or like in the cloud. If I have a deep link makes it really easy. So I would totally recommend if you are somebody who works with the deep links. So apart from that, there is nothing much I'm doing in the Power BI, in the Power Query editor. So let me close that one. So let's have a quick look at data. So this is basically my data. So what I have here is I have total sales value, and I have, well, basically I have total sales value by I have data for various years for each month, and I've got attributes and also I have value. Data model where I have date table, and I also have there are two types of data available. One is adjusted total sales value, and there was the one which is non-seasonally adjusted. So I think it's like I have two fact tables and two dimension tables, which are basically filtering both fact tables. So at a time I was only using one data from one table, not from two fact tables. So that's pretty much what I have, and I created this attribute table as a dimension table. It has nothing but just list of my attributes. So it's a very simple model. So I think what I really wanted to talk about is not about model, my approach towards the report. So first of all, because I wanted to go for infographic layout, I went to format, I changed my page size, I chose custom, and I went for something random initially. So this is kind of like, I have infographic layout, so it's longer. So let me show you actual size. So you can see when you scroll, it's a lot longer than usual one. So let me go back to fit to page. I like to, whenever I'm using this kind of like, longer layouts, I like to put it in the fit to page layout. It gives me an idea about like how my entire page is going to look like, and also it helps me whenever I am putting a visual, so it doesn't go up and down. I think probably I'll talk about that in a bit later. Anyway, so when I talk about size, there was no particular reason why I went for this width and this height. I just went for whatever suits for my criteria. So because in this case I have a header and I have footer, and I also have my long visual, so I just went for the height that basically works for me. So to go to the visual, let's so what I wanted was I have attributes, so like basically I have data for various years. So let me get year and month, and then I wanted to because initially I just wanted to show only current year and prior year, so let me keep year in on filters on this page. So I will have, so I could choose just current year and prior year. So, and I always begin with a table because it's easy to understand. So I have year and month there, and then I wanted to see my data for each attribute, and basically I wanted to see how my sales are for, like, you know, basically I wanted to see sales. So these were my sales, and you could see those were, like, you know, current year and prior year. So probably if I change it to matrix, I could keep year and month here. So now I could drill down. This gives me sales for the current year versus prior year, and obviously you could see there was no sales, like, you know, we have data only up to 2020, and yeah, this gives me all the data I wanted. So maybe now I wanted to change this into a something nice, like a maybe more visually appealing. So if I change that into visually appealing one, so let me, instead of actually choosing this way, maybe because if I want to make it visually appealing, let me remove this. I could just use attribute and then change that into, because I have some measures where I have current year sales and I have previous year sales. So now it gives me exactly how the sales were current year versus previous year, but obviously we need date, so I could keep date there, or I could just use month. So now I have month, and I probably don't need 2019. So if I just keep this one and I keep attribute there, if I drill down, I have current year sales and the prior year sales. I could remove this. And now, because I wanted it to be visually appealing, I could probably go and add another visual, change this into a bar chart, or that is not really what I wanted. So maybe remove the month, add month as a slicer, and change that into a horizontal orientation, and keep that one here. Well, this may not be exactly what I thought through when I was designing this, but I'm just trying to pretend that this is what I tried doing. So now what I have here is I have January So I could go to different months and that gives me a visual representation of it. Or maybe I could change this into a tornado chart, and that way I have, like, maybe if I actually remove this and change that into a slicer, like a long slicer. And then I have this. So now this kind of gives me a, well, I haven't made it really beautiful, but it gives me an understanding, like, how my data has been looking for current year sales versus prior year sales. But then when I started looking into data, I have data for various years. So that's when I thought maybe I want to give the user a choice. Like maybe I should actually give year as a choice for the users. So instead of using the, well, user always can go and choose year here, but maybe I could give year as a slicer as well. So that's when I went for year as a slicer. So maybe go for drop down and make sure the user always choose single selection, and that way. So now I have year, and probably let's go and choose 2020 and move this a bit smaller, bring that down. So now what I have is so user can go and choose whatever the year they want, and then they have a choice to choose various months. So this gives me a good layout, and I could add more information to it, and this gives me a single layout where user has pretty much all the information, and then I could actually go and change this to, like, maybe I could add, oh, that's not what I wanted, but over here I could change this to a bit bigger. So we can actually read it, and then I could remove the title, and even I could actually remove the group and add more, like, enable the hover over options, so there are not too many labels, but ideally labels should be there. And yeah, I mean, I could do various things, but something I believe when I'm trying to do the visualizations is we should not leave calculations for the user. So for example, here what I have is I wanted to do current year versus prior year, and I don't want user to go and do the calculation themselves. Like, in this one the user can't understand, like, what exactly the difference. It's like first of all, this visual, it's giving me the comparison, but like I don't have the actual difference. So that's when I wanted to add difference, and I also wanted to add an indicator showing, okay, this is the difference, this is how I wanted to do, and all those things. So that's when matrix works amazingly perfect for me, because I could change this whole data into matrix, and then I could also add difference. So this is my difference. So this gives me my difference. So like I now exactly know what was the difference, and I have like as a different percentage. Then instead of showing it as, because I wanted to make it a bit more prettier, so, and I wanted, like, not only prettier, I wanted to add the feel. See, so this is again again, something I believe in is the visuals gives the feel. And actually, this is something said by Andy Kirk. He said visualization, well, he didn't actually said this, but this is how I understood. But like visualizations gives you the feel, it's like emotion, and the numbers are very precise, it's like a precision. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted in my visual as well. It's like I want to add a bit of feel with some colors and the bars, but I also wanted to give the precision numbers, and also the difference is again the precision, and indicators gives you the feel. So that's basically what I was going for in this report. So for that reason, what I wanted to do is I wanted to add a conditional formatting. I wanted to add some data bars. So a positive bar and one for prior sales, again data bar. Let's not worry about colors much, just add something. So yeah, that's not a good color, but just think we added a good color. So I have this, but later what I wanted to do is I actually just wanted to add only bar but not the numbers. So over the time, so like I cannot really add only bar, because okay, let me show you what I meant is if I go here and go to data bar, and if I go for only show bar only, so now I have only bar. Let me remove the totals. So now I have only bar, but now I also want to add the precision numbers. So if I remove the prior year sales, just add the current year sales, and if I want to add the current year sales again, I automatically gets the conditional formatting. If I want to remove the conditional formatting only for this, like let's remove for only for data bars, it removes the conditional formatting for both columns, so both values. So for that reason what I did is I created another measure. One is formatted, and so I don't have to give the full value, and the other one is, so now what I can do is I could add data bar, just show bar only. So now I have like a nice layout and things, but I don't want it, my visuals to, so this, well, at this point this is pretty nice, but when I wanted to my labels are not very user friendly, and I actually wanted to add, instead of showing month here, which is because I wanted very little interactivity, I actually wanted to show month in my table. So let me add month here, and do this one. So now I have my month, and I have my current year sales, but because I'm 2019, but let me go to 2020. So I have my sales. Let me move my month, latest month. So I have current year sales, but like, you know, when I'm adding my prior year sales, it's like I want this to be a bit, my labels to be a bit more user friendly, and I want my labels to be dynamic. So that's when I want, because especially now I have years, various years, I want users to be able to understand exactly what I'm showing with the less explanation. So that's when I was that's when I thought, okay, I want to add some dynamic titles, which is not really possible when you're working with matrix visual. So let's me go back to my actual visual, what I did, and I could just show what I did here. So what I did is the changes I did to the matrix. So is I'm using a matrix visual here. you could go here and you could see it's a matrix visual. What I did was I went to my column headers and I chose font colors and the background color same, which means you don't actually see the column headers. And after that, what I did is I created measures and I used measures as my labels by using multi-row card. And in the multi-row card, I disable the bar so you don't see the bar, and I'm using those as my labels. So when I switch between different years, this automatically gets calculated. So this is my 2019 value and this is my 2020 value, because I wanted to give the feel and also precise values. So I added percentage change so the user can exactly see what was the percentage change happen. So if you look at in 2017, and like if you go to July, I could actually see, like, you know, pretty much everything was going up. But when you go to 2020, you could see food stores went up, but all the rest are basically, well, non-store retailing went up, but like all the rest of them are actually down. And the stores started opening, and you can see some of things went up. So yeah, so it's like before you even start looking at the numbers, having this kind of feel, it gives gives you the understanding of this one. And the other things, so what other things I did is, once I used those labels as my titles, I grouped everything. So I grouped my visual and also my labels in my selection window, so that they are like in a right order, so that, like, you know, when the user clicks at the wrong place, it doesn't get like, you know, it doesn't layer up. But this is something, again, another thing I recommend is when you're using various layers, and ideally layering visuals it's good. Well, mostly it's bad, but sometimes it is good because it kind of serves the purpose. But it is very bad because you have no clue where your user is going to click on. So if they don't click at if they click at random places, which is quite possible, and that's when it cannot show the way you wanted it to show. So whenever you're layering visuals, you have to be extra careful. So for that purpose, what I did in this visual is, like, I have a top layer which I've hidden at the moment. So because in this model, again, is my goal is to keep it really simple. I don't want any interactivity, any hover over, and no tooltips. So for that reason, what I did is I added a top layer, and the top layer is basically hides everything. So it's just a shape. So when I click on the shape, so now the user cannot click on anything. So if I don't have the top layer, is like when the user goes on this, you can see all these little rectangles and like boxes, and if user clicks on somewhere like this, for example, and you don't see the headers, so it's very misleading. So for that reason, what I did is I added a top layer. So now even user clicks on somewhere, it doesn't do anything. User can click only on the slices. And also I added top layer in a way, so if I enable border, and I could probably show you what I meant. So if you look at my border, I am using the border. I'm not putting the shape on the scroll bar, which means when the user want to scroll within the visual, they can still scroll, but they don't really won't be able to click on the things. Well, it's still a bit tricky because, like, you know, user can still click on this tiny bits. So yeah, that's where you have to be careful, like, you know, what really how you're layering and where the user going to click and things like that. So and the other things I did on this matrix is, when you compare this matrix with the other matrix, it's like, so this is how your matrix usually looks like, but what I personally like to do is I go to style, change it to none, and then I go to grid, change row padding to something which makes a bit more nice looking for me. So that's basically what I did. I increased row padding, I added horizontal lines, horizontal grid. So so it looks better for me. So it's, when you actually look in the Power BI service, you could see it's like, it's nicely, it looks sleek, and you can still scroll down and up, and yeah, user can choose the different slices. My labels gets changed based on the slicer selection. So there is not really a lot of interactivity, because by default it's always latest year which gets chosen. So there's not really a lot of interactivity user has to do, unless user really wants to go and do something like, you know, how is my, like, exactly, like if I go to 2018 and I'm more interested in only to look at Q2, that's the only when they probably want to do the interactivity. So so that's pretty much it is I've done on this model. Is like, there is not a lot I've done, and I think the only thing probably I do want to talk about, which I should be talking initially, is colors. I haven't done a lot of work when it comes to colors. It's more of, I went for blue initially, and that's universal color, so which is good. But because I'm doing the comparison like current year to prior year, I wanted something similar to blue, and I like purple, so that's basically how I went for purple. For the indicators, I just went for default indicator colors available in Power BI. Didn't really paid much attention to, like, you know, I didn't go for not really color blindness friendly or anything like that. I just went for user by default one, and the rest of the layout is like, because I wanted it to look clean, so that's why I went for light background. I wanted to use the white space. I wanted audience to see the white space, so that's why there is a lot of white space in the visual. And the title, I don't wanted it to be too shouty, but I wanted it to be noticed, because I already have red color in the report for the indicators, so that's why I kind of went for red. Now I'm not too sure for going for red, but like yeah, it's kind of yeah, maybe it's not too shouty. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did in this report. So hope you learned something. Let me know what you think about it. Yeah, let me know what you think about it in comments. And you can download the model on my blog. I will publish the video and the bit of information about the dataset and things on my blog post. Thank you for watching, and yeah, see you soon. Hey guys, this is Pratika Masani, and today I'm going to talk about how I designed UK retail sales Power BI model. So the inspiration behind this model was one, two, three. Guys, this is Pratika Masani, and today I'm going to talk about how I designed UK retail sales Power BI model using Power BI, obviously, to my infographic